You were called mature for your age. Not once, not occasionally, but repeatedly by teachers, relatives, neighbors, even strangers. They said it like it was a compliment, and maybe, at the time, it felt like one. You didn't throw tantrums. You didn't ask for much. You understood things other kids didn't. You knew when to stay quiet. You knew how to read a room before you knew how to read yourself. And somewhere along the way, you internalized a dangerous equation. My value comes from how little trouble I cause. So you adapted. You adjusted. You grew up fast. What no one told you was that this maturity wasn't wisdom. It was survival intelligence. Because children are not supposed to be calm in chaos. They're not supposed to regulate adults. They're not supposed to carry emotional weight that has no name yet. But you did. And here is the paradox, the one that sits at the center of your adult life. The trait that protected you as a child is now the trait quietly sabotaging your ability to rest, receive, and feel alive. Your maturity saved you, but it also taught you to disappear. You learned to override your own signals, to delay your needs indefinitely, to confuse endurance with strength. And now, as an adult, you might feel strangely empty during moments that are supposed to feel safe. You might feel guilty when you slow down. You might feel restless in peace, and oddly calm in crisis, because your nervous system never learned that safety could exist without responsibility. This video is not about blaming your past. It's about naming what was invisible, because what was praised as maturity was often premature self-abandonment, and that has a cost. Psychologically, this pattern has a name. It's called parentification. Parentification occurs when a child is placed here psychologically or practically into a caregiving role, long before they have the internal resources to sustain it. Sometimes it looks obvious: caring for siblings, managing household responsibilities, being the little adult in the family, but more often, it's subtle. You became the emotional stabilizer, the listener, the peacemaker, the one who sensed tension before words were spoken. This kind of maturity doesn't develop in a vacuum. It develops in environments where unpredictability exists emotionally, financially, or relationally. So your nervous system adapted, and this is where hypervigilance enters. Hypervigilance is not anxiety, it's preparedness. It's the constant background scanning of your environment for emotional shifts, unspoken needs, and potential disruptions. Your brain learned that staying alert meant staying safe. Neurologically, this alters how the brain prioritizes information. Your amygdala, the threat detection center, became highly efficient. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and control, developed early, but something else was delayed. Your default mode network, the system associated with rest, play, imagination, and self-referential thought, never fully learned it was safe to come online. So even in adulthood, rest doesn't feel restorative. It feels suspicious. This often pairs with an avoidant or anxious avoidant attachment style, not because you don't want connection, but because closeness once came with responsibility. Love meant managing, being needed, being strong. So your system learned, if I relax, something will fall apart. This is not a personality trait. This is a developmental adaptation. You weren't born this way. You were shaped. Here is the grief no one names. When you grow up too early, you don't lose your childhood all at once. You lose it quietly. You lose it in moments you never had the language to mourn. You lose it when you realize you don't remember being carefree, only being competent. You lose it when rest feels undeserved. You lose it when joy feels fragile, like something that must be earned. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents." And for many who were mature too early, this burden became identity. You learned to sacrifice authenticity for belonging. You learned to trade spontaneity for stability. You learned that being low maintenance kept you loved, so you became composed, but not necessarily connected. Resilient but often disconnected from your own softness. The core fear beneath this pattern is not failure, it's being a burden. Needing feels dangerous, wanting feels selfish, depending feels irresponsible. So, even in adulthood, you might over-explain your needs, minimize your pain feel. Guilt after expressing vulnerability feels safest when you're useful, not when you're seen. This creates an invisible grief. Not for something that happened, but for something that never did. A childhood where you didn't have to be strong, a version of you that didn't have to earn rest. And the tragedy is this: you were praised for your strengths, but never asked if you were tired. This pattern doesn't disappear with age, it simply changes shape. People who were mature too early often become adults who, 1. are extremely capable but chronically exhausted. You handle pressure well. You perform in crisis. But peace makes you uneasy. 2. Struggle with boundaries not because you don't know them, but because enforcing them triggers guilt. Saying no feels like letting someone down, even when it costs you. 3. Confuse self-worth with productivity. Doing nothing feels like failure. Rest must be justified. 4. Attract relationships where you are needed more than you are known. You become the emotional anchor, but rarely the one being held. 5. Suppress anger until it turns into numbness or sudden withdrawal, because anger once felt unsafe to express. 6. Feel strangely disconnected from joy, like happiness requires vigilance. You wait for the other shoe to drop. And here's the most important reframe: these are not flaws. They are coping strategies. They worked once, but healing begins when you stop gaslighting yourself by calling survival just how I am. The first step is witnessing, not fixing, not forcing softness, but noticing when the old role activates. When you feel the urge to manage instead of feel. When you feel responsible for others' emotions. When rest triggers anxiety instead of relief. Awareness is not passive. It's the beginning of Healing does not mean becoming immature. It means becoming integrated. One of the most powerful tools here is inner child reparenting. This is the practice of consciously offering yourself what was missing. Permission to rest, validation without performance, care without conditions. It also involves shadow work, meeting the parts of you that learned to disappear. Not to shame them, but to thank them, because that maturity kept you alive. But you are allowed to outgrow survival. Healing looks like choosing softness without justification, letting joy be inefficient, allowing yourself to need without apology. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Your chaos was never a flaw. It was unmanaged responsibility. And now, the work is not to erase it, but to loosen its grip. You are not broken. You were early to responsibility, early to awareness, early to strength. But now, you are allowed to be late to nothing, late to rest, late to joy, late to ease. The goal is not to be fixed, it is to become whole. If this resonated, share it with someone who learned to grow up too soon. And remember, maturity was never meant to cost you your aliveness. You don't have to earn your softness anymore. You already survived.